This is Big Man Tyrone, and you're about to watch the MtG Cabal cast with your hosts, Woad, Thirsty, and Reptar. Sub to us on all your podcast networks at MtG Cabal Cast and YouTube.
All right, guys, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabal cast. This week, we've got pretty interesting topic for you. We're going to be covering penny specs, which is something we harp on a lot. Specifically, what our strategies are for like dumping them, how deep we go, how long our hold time is, whatever. And we've touched on it briefly before, but we're actually going for, full on, in depth. This is what we're doing now.
Yep.
So,
I like this topic a little bit because it's getting harder and harder to penny spec properly in the current standard format. So you've got to keep your eyes peeled for what you can and can't move on. I had an interesting discussion with somebody yesterday on Twitter as the Star City Open closed, and I think a round or maybe two prior to the top 8 cut, we found out that a Golgari deck had locked top 8. So it was a conversation about that list, and I'll bring it up in a minute, because what I want to talk about is effectively a penny spec from that deck, albeit not quite a penny. So this is what something I like to look at when I penny spec. Basically, it's something that costs under $2 or $3 that I can move in on in large quantity from a singular vendor. So the card that I looked at initially, I went 28 deep on from a single vendor because that's all they had, is Rishkar Pima Renegade. So the reason I like this card as a penny spec and a midterm hold is that this is a card that was printed in packs and pre-release kits only. There's one way to get it non-foil, or two ways to get it foil. The pack foil was $1.45 when I picked them up at 28 each. Going through the rest of the deck, there was nothing else that was nearly that cheap in foil as a non-land card or something that wasn't already in standard. Everything else has multiple printings or multiple ways to pick up in foil. So I chose this card. Digging in a little deeper, I verified that this does have a little bit of EDH play and a little bit of Oathbreaker play, about the same percentage across decks that are counter-themed, 5%, which isn't that great, well, because the theme is, it's there, but it's kind of gate-kept by Doubling Season and Parallel Lives. So this card is also in the Hardened Scales deck in Pioneer, so it pulls double duty. Oh yes, there's a Hardened Scales deck in Pioneer that does not run Winding Constrictor.
Yeah.
So you don't play Hardened Scales the creature, the 2/3 snake. You stay away from that. It's just Hardened Scales and Walking Ballista and Hangerback Walker. Essentially, that deck from Standard ported into Pioneer with a little bit better mana base.
Yeah, slightly better,
Yeah. But the idea behind Rishkar is that this Golgari deck that top 8'd by Sean Werning is just a stompy deck. It can deal 15 to 20 points of damage somewhere around turns 4 or 5. And it is very light on the Golgari theme, and it's just aggressive. This is a deck that has the ability to stabilize the format, so to speak, if it continues to be an inverter-based format. Sean performed wonderfully on camera against Inverter. That's the reason he chose to play this deck, because it has a great matchup against Inverter, although he got dunked by Azorius Control in the top 8. Literally his worst matchup. He could have won, or could have run the event, could have run the tables, and I was hoping for it. But this is what led me to pick up this card effectively as just a low-impact, medium-hold penny stock. I expect the foil to easily crest 5 if this deck starts to pick up on Moto, if Moto continues to be mono inverter, and the next bunch of events that we move into are going to be Pioneer. We don't know when the ban list is going to happen next, but there are Magic Fest slated that are, I think it's 2 that are Pioneer.
I believe it was Aaron Forsyth did tweet that there are no plans currently on the horizon for a Pioneer ban.
So there you go.
Sort of announcing a non-announcement, which is keeping in flavor with them.
Yep. So there's nothing about this card that I don't like.
Yeah.
And because it
Pretty
was
good.
it was a very easy card to move into. I think I spent about a little over 40 on it. The reason I went for that was because it was like at 26 I got free shipping at $35, so I just bought the extra 2
Yeah.
and got the rest with taxes at about 40. And for me, as a foil, this represents a great penny stock. There are other cards that I could have moved into in foil, and I'll talk about that with my second card after Thirsty gets a chance. But
Yeah.
this has the highest opportunity to rise the quickest out of a lot of other cards I was looking at.
For sure.
So
Something I look for penny stocks for me, I am much more of an EDH guy. What has this done in EDH? What potential does it have? I harped on Sarkhan's Unsealing for I don't even know how long at this point. I love that card.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And part of that's one of my penny stocks. I think it's a red enchantment that does dumb things in EDH, which is a common theme for stuff that you wake up and like, oh, Possibility Storm is suddenly $5? I don't remember that being $5 literally ever.
Yep. Or a Burning Sands from Torment, or as an Odyssey, the land destruction card.
Yes. Burning Sands was me. Anyways, that's the type of stuff that I look out for. And in terms of like how deep I go, I like to go deep right after it's printed. So I got in really deep on Sarkhan's Unsealing while it was actively being printed because I was like, you know what? This is what I want to go in on. This is what I am going to go in on. So I did. And now, like with, if I were to go in on something like Burning Sands, I wouldn't go as deep because it's not at like its low point, and I like to get on penny stocks as low as possible.
Yep.
And, I, similar to most of my other specs, I look to get a certain margin on it. But for me, with penny stocks, it's more. I may on most things only look for like a 20 to 30%. And that's typical for most cards, not typical for penny stocks. I bought all my Sarkhan's Unsealings at about sub 40 cents.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm at, I think,
right after
300 of them or something. I will not out a single one of those until they hit a $1.50 buy list. I may never out them. I recognize that, but I at least want to triple up from my penny stocks because of how deep I go.
Yes.
I've got 300 of these things, and I paid $100, maybe 150 for them. I want to get 900 out of them, at least. And that's where I differ from some people I know, because I am all about the explosive margins on penny stocks, and not everyone is.
No, it's understandable. It's hard to pick and choose correctly, and the fact that we both considered EDH viability in these cards seems to be important because that's where we are right now. It sucks that you just have to keep looking back in time to an era when things were printed in less quantity, but Sarkhan's Unsealing suffers from that as being a fairly recent card compared to Rishkar, or the next card I'm going to talk about.
Yeah. I also think that a factor that a lot of people don't consider is how opened a set is. So Core 19 wasn't heavily opened, really, compared to like Core 20.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I'm more comfortable with that than I am with like something, I don't know, Veil of Summer, when people thought that card was worthless, as a bad example.
Yeah.
I look for that as well, because that print run thing is a huge deal.
Yeah, it's like the 7th edition paradigm, where non-foils are kind of whatever, but foils are ridiculous, not just because of the foil multiplier, but because that core set in particular was just not really opened compared to the others around it.
And that's something that you have to consider when you go in on these penny specs, is like, all right, well, obviously this card's going to explode, right?
Yeah.
When this card explodes, how many packs are going to get opened that are sitting around in distros now?
Yeah. And the thing that I like about Sarkhan's Unsealing is that in regards to at least trend tracking, if it was ever to be put in a promo pack, it should follow something akin to Sunbird's Invocation, which I stare at all the time because it's a penny spec that I've had for a while, but not the one I'm going to talk about next. But we can actually see a rise in the price of Sunbird's Invocation after it was announced that it would be in promo packs. People keep buying this card. The price keeps going up. It's until it's just released again in another set, it's just going to continue to tick up and up and up.
Yeah.
And with core 19 having rotated, it's already effectively hit its bottom. So we shouldn't really see it go any lower. Any EDH play should float Sargon's Unsealing.
Yeah.
Yeah, pure and simple. Hopefully, yeah. The other card I want to cite as a penny spec or penny stock rather, is purely a bulk rare. It is Wake Root Elemental.
Oh boy.
Yep, my core 20 penny stock. So I got these. One vendor on TCG had 75 at 12 cents each, which is effectively bulk price for a rare. So bought them out.
Yeah.
Not TCG, just that one vendor. I bought all 75.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting on those and whatever other ones that I've found. But that is actually one of the most important parts, was I was able to get that quantity from a singular vendor. If I had to piece this together, I probably would not have moved in, and I wanted to get as close to 100 as I could from a singular vendor as possible at that point in time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Whether I go any deeper in the long run, I'm not sure. The car's stable. I can pick these up whenever. They're not quite being open core 20, but people don't care about that set anymore. The problem that this card has is that it is currently in standard in the infinite variety printing paradigm. So we have a set version, a pre-release version, and a promo pack version. That would make 5 different versions of this card, 2 of which are non-foil. So that's going to suppress the price, and I knew that moving in. But the reason I did this was because it was already bulk priced from an actual vendor, and it is a combo engine in EDH. This thing makes infinite mana in EDH, plain and simple.
Yeah.
It is not the tier 1 through 3 picks. I understand that as well, but this is another piece of that engine that just kind of hums along.
Yep.
So what I'm looking at is a long-term hold for a card that was printed within the last year that is bulk prices, still easy to buy and still easy to get out of trade binders. Even in foil, this is only about 30 some cents for the set version. Card Kingdom wants no part of anything that isn't the promo pack version.
Nope.
So I will just scoop these up as I see them in trade binders until the end of time. This is a 12-cent rare that could all of a sudden be $1 or $2 in time, and nobody will have noticed. Alchemist Refuge was a dirt card. It was basically seen like a worse version of Winding Canyons, and all of a sudden that was a $5 card.
All because of EDH.
Yes, entirely EDH. And if you don't know what Alchemist Refuge is, it's basically just Winding Canyon or Ley Line of Sanctity with a cost.
Or abundant or anticipation.
Yeah. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick.
Yeah, I was actually discussing that with someone this weekend, that there are very few permanent effects like that. But Alchemist Refuge and Winding Canyon, which is reserve list, so you can't do that, is very much a option. And the reason it spikes is because you can run that in non-blue decks that want that effect. Yeah. So EDH exists.
Yeah, for Winding Canyon at least. Alchemist Refuge has a blue symbol in it, right?
True. Yeah.
Right. But you can see on this graph, it did nothing for forever until Origins. It was a 50-cent card, and then just started to tick up.
Yep. And just through natural demand.
Yep.
The other penny stock I'll cite is one that I got into a long time ago, and that was Wargate. When Wargate was printed, I was like, this card's insane. Yep. It's a tutor. It tutors for a bunch of different stuff, and it's in a multicolor set. This card's going to be great one day. So I ended up with close to 230 of the card, and then that deck was a thing in Modern for a week. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, my time has come. I don't know if this deck is real or not, but buy lists sure do. And I just shipped them all the buy lists. Because
yeah. Wasn't it a Valakut deck? Well, before Valakut was banned, it was Wargate Valakut?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I got rid of it. And that was an example of, for me, it's just, I knew this card would do something one day. And this was before the days of Saffron Olive. We cite that effect all the time, where it's the type of card, when I picked Phyrexian Soul Gorger, I was like, yo, this is a thing that's happening. So let's do it.
Why not? Yeah.
And this was literally just card evaluation, and that was it. So,
yeah, no, similar to Wargate, that's why I had not as many Bring to Lights as somebody in Canada, but I had probably 40 or 50 regular bring plates because I was also a believer in that card. It does something very similar to Wargame, where it's just a tutor through your deck. You go and get your win con. It was played in the modern Ad Nauseam deck for a little bit, because you could just wish for anything.
Yep.
The end. It just won. There was also Bring to Light Scape Shift for a little bit.
Yeah, and now Scape Shift is dead, and we have Amulet Shift.
Yeah.
Modern is a terrible format.
TBD.
Yeah, TBD. But yeah, I think those are the types of things that, you can do the EDH model of, is this a card that's going to be insane in EDH?
Yeah.
Or you can do the model of, well, this is probably going to be broken one day, so let's do it.
Yeah, and I think that's some continued importance is just understanding that everything's going to be printed in at least for the foreseeable future in multiple versions is going to suppress the price. So unless you're looking at a card that is going to be purely for EDH, that isn't something ridiculous like Nyx Bloom Ancient. Yeah, Unbound Flourishing is a good example. Like something that just isn't obviously EDH, those always come out of the gate with an EDH-based price. That's going to be your best option, is to try and pick a sleeper. If you want to spec on Standard, that's also an option. There's just a lot more card evaluation that's going to go into that. You have to pick the right version of the card, and then you also have to hope that the card hits. So it's just a lot more input that you need to take in. The conversation I mentioned earlier about the Golgari deck kind of centered around the fact that I did not believe that Steel Leaf Champion was a card to pick up, and it was the first one I thought of actually when I was looking at this deck, because I was like, oh, Galta's way too expensive, and anything in Standard that's in this deck, even thinking about Ronus for the same reason, has so many variations, it's not even going to be worth it. So what isn't a land that I can look at? And lo and behold, it was Rishkar. But when they asked specifically about Steel Leaf, I said, I would not do that, because there is the set version, so that's foil, non-foil, the game day promo, which is full art, and I believe there's a promo pack version of Steel Leaf Champion out there as well. That card
and the pre-release.
Yeah, and the pre-release. So the non-foil version of that card is super suppressed compared to the other pricing, because there are so many ways to get a foil.
Yeah.
But you have to hope that you buy the right version of that card for it to pop. Personally, if I were going to move in, I would think the game day version, because it's full art and thus a little more pimp than just the other versions of the foil. But people are buying promo pack foils, unlike pre-release version foils, which I thought were going to be the thing, so I'm hedging my bets.
Yeah.
But I'm off it.
Fair. Yeah, I think that's important too, is making sure, you hedge your bets as best you can.
Yeah.
But
I think there's opportunity. You just have to take in every piece of information you can.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to move on to picks?
Shall we?
All right. You want to go first? Because
a weird one.
Yes.
For sure. So I was looking through some cards last weekend that I had just sitting around, right? And I was like, sure, whatever. And found a card that spiked with the release of Battle Bond, and it was a very low floor prior to that. Looks like 85-ish cents was what it was at before we got Battle Bond. And then it spiked, and it's sort of settled and flattened back down now.
Yep.
And that's Krark's Thumb. This is not quite a penny stock, because it is about $2 to $3 low right now. But it's something that every single time a coin flip effect is going to be printed, is going to spike. Every single time. This card goes in every coin flip deck ever. They love coin flip cards in casual formats like Battle Bond, like any of the unsets. They love that stuff. And it is a card which appeals specifically to casual players. And it appeals specifically to casual players that like to do cool things. And those, like, casuals drive the market, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Casual players who love doing cool things really drive the market. And if you look at the foil, we have a similar thing here. The foil was at $5, and then it spiked way up to $50, $60, and now we're down to like $30-ish on the foil. This is something that sat in trade binders forever. Forever.
Yeah.
And didn't do anything. And now we're to the point where it's sort of flattened out again, and it's going to start doing nothing for quite a while. The only reprint risk you really have is like a Commander supplemental product, but I think that it is the type of thing that long term will see its price boosted by those products.
Yeah.
Because this card is from so long ago and hasn't been printed since, so it has very little exposure. And I think that when an EDH product comes out that has it in it, it'll tank it first, and then it'll shoot right back up over time.
Yeah.
Because you have people that didn't have exposure to the card prior.
Yep. For people that don't know, the reason it spiked with Battle Bond was because of all the coin flip cards in the set. It enabled people to play Frenetic Efreet and basically go infinite in a flip coin deck with Zinder Split and Akun. I'll try and get those up real quick. Like you can see.
And
Okun and
there was it was for the card that was like, if you win 10 coin flips, you win the game. And you run it with Zender Split and Okun and Clark's Thumb, and you try to just get there.
Yep.
And that's it.
Oh, yeah. And there's some other odds and ends that deal with coin flips. Ral Zarek, the original Ral, their alt is you just flip coins and whatever, or however many flips you win out of the X number you have to, you take extra turns. It's just been this cute card forever, and they paid homage to it in, was it the last actual unset with Krark's Other Thumb?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Krark's Other Thumb.
Yeah. I don't remember what it does, if it doesn't coin flips or not, but
yeah,
a little bit of homage to that card. So this is an interesting pick and a card that I've set aside for a long enough time that makes sense. I would expect the idea to out this would be buy lists.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely going to be like on something like this, buy list, specifically Card Kingdom, because their buy list of any in the industry responds to spikes faster than any other.
Yep, and it's all automated too, which is
and it's all automated, so that's the first place to go every single time.
Yep, just this has never been a card that I've been asked for at an event, but that was before the advent of the command zone.
Yeah.
And so unless some of your super casuals are going to be coming out to that, which is kind of a TBD. I haven't been to a Magic Fest since Vegas.
Yeah,
and unless those super homers are coming out to play, I can't imagine that this is going to be a card that'll move in a case. Like if you have a foil, sure you can toss it.
A foil will, sure, but it's not the type of thing that and that was a discussion I had this week. And EDH foils are what you want. You don't want non-foils because those don't move at events.
Yeah. Unless that person who found the Ifrit is like the thumb for whatever reason.
Yeah, fair.
So, this isn't a card I would move on because I have no outs besides buy a list, and as a pure EDH card like this, I would rather move it and trade than to buy a list, only because the entry point is so high.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you don't have the opportunity to sit on this for long enough.
This
is one of those things where you have to, again, decide, do you want to tie up your capital in something that costs 5 or so to try and get out at 8 or 8 plus and make your money there? Or do you want to go with thinner margins and try and churn stock faster? And you're not wrong either way. You just have to decide what works best for you.
Yeah.
So, go steam right along to my pick. There's no reason to dance around this one. My pick is Doomsday. Last week I picked Spoils of the Vault. The other win con this week I'm picking is Doomsday. Why? Not just because it started to randomly creep up around War of the Spark. No, because it's actually being played at Legacy again. There are currently 2 people 5-0ing with this deck, it looks like fairly regularly, at least once a week on Moto. And they're both essentially playing the same deck. It is a Sultai-based deck that plays a lot slower. It plays very defensively. It's actually the deck that I was experimenting with ahead of time when I was just thinking, how can I build Doomsday and ensure I could win? Well, I need Force of Will and Baleful Strix. And then lo and behold, these 2 people are doing the exact same thing.
Yep.
What people are not working with is a Breach version. And I think the moment that somebody basically takes Ad Nauseam Tendrils, that Storm deck, and just boots out the part of the shell that wants to try and cast Tendrils and kill your opponent with that, you go Doomsday instead.
Yeah.
And you just win a little bit better off that. You might want to keep Drills in the main or make some Gobos, whatever, just as a secondary win con instead of Thassa's Oracle. but man, you can still get there with Breach. Whew, boy, that's a good card.
Yeah, Breach is insane.
I'm going Doomsday because this card has not seen a lot of action. If you got in right before War of the Spark when it was at its lowest, you were lucky enough to pick them up at $2 each, and it's already climbed to $5 since War of the Spark, maybe a little higher than that for the Weatherlight version, which is the one I would go in on because it's black border, etc., etc. But my companion pick is actually, if you want to spend a little more money on Doomsday, is on the Invocation. This is a card I've been tracking since it was released. This is the only other version of Doomsday I would play besides Japanese Weatherlight because I'm that person. And it has been flat. If Doomsday takes off and actually wins a high-profile event or tops 8 it, you can expect this to be an Invocation that moves and never comes back. And I don't mean we're going to look at like a $100 Invocation. It might just become a $50 Invocation. But if you were thinking about playing this in Legacy or EDH or wherever, you're going to thank me for buying in now than after it hits. It's just a matter of time. These 5.0 decks are easy to find. The Legacy subreddit posts all 5.0 lists from the dump that goes in.
Every chance they get.
Mm-hmm. And Doomsday is always in this. There has been in the spicy tier for a while, which is above everybody else. And one player just continues to 5.0 with it.
Yep. It's also interesting because I think it could follow a trajectory similar to what we saw with Necro. Necro sat there for ages. It was, $5, $10. And then all of a sudden it started taking off in EDH, and there were rumors of it unbanning, and all of a sudden it started exploding just because it got exposure in those formats. Doomsday has EDH exposure, and it can get Legacy exposure, which is even more added utility to the financial value of it. And it is, like you said, it's a combo deck that has existed for years. Periodically it pops up and does really well, and every time it does, Doomsday becomes a $5 to $10 card.
Yes, this isn't like Charbelcher, which is a glass cannon and is easy to build in that regard. But it is a deck for stalwarts of the play pattern.
Yeah.
People just don't pick up Doomsday and play it. It had some of the hardest play patterns ever. Vintage fucking hero Stephen Menendian used to write articles, PDFs rather, like 10 and 15 page PDFs about how to play Doomsday correctly in Vintage and Legacy. Like these were the primers you were getting. It wasn't just like this is how you play this is the 5-card pile you make, you win. No, this was like the plan for Doomsday, and it was like trying to figure out how to solve a Rubik's Cube. You just had play patterns and you had math and a bunch of formulas, and like that was Doomsday. With Thassa's Oracle in play now, things are a lot more streamlined, a lot easier. That raises lowers the opportunity cost to get into the deck. Lands notwithstanding, it was difficulty and position within the meta that kept people out. It's just like the Spanish Inquisition. That deck, if you've never heard of it, is basically every
I love that deck.
Like black combo deck in Legacy. It had Tendrils, it had Belcher, it had it didn't have Doomsday, I don't think, throughout its history.
No, it did not.
It was. It might have had Painter Grindstone at one point in time, but
it did.
Basically, this deck just played a bunch of cards, like Culling the Weak, I think, that allows you to pay like 3 mana, half your life, and then you draw 3 cards.
It ran Infernal Contract and Cruel Bargain that did that.
Yeah.
And you ran the 0-cost artifacts with Culling the Weak. I love this deck. I love that deck. Anyways, and it ran that stuff, and you would, it stopped being a thing basically when Counterbalance got printed.
Yeah. That's a fun card. Fun for everyone. Fun for all. That deck has harder play lines, and that's for stalwarts.
Yeah.
Doomsday now, not so much, especially with the Sultai version that, like I said, plays protection, plays Val Summer as little offense, defense, Strix, and you just kind of slow draw to your combo, defend yourself, win. You don't have probe, you don't have top anymore, but you still just draw those 5 cards rather easily. And what did I have up for regular Doomsday? At a $5 or $4.46 average market buy-in, I don't think there's any reason to not pick up some copies if you're thinking about playing Legacy, or you're looking for a card that's just going to go.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Solid.
Right. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, I think that's about it. I will say, just dropping one more line for self-promotion, let us know if you can make it to the Legacy 5K/10K that I am hosting in St. Louis. It is at mtgnami.com if you want to sign up. It's for the NAMI charity, National Alliance on Mental Illness. You should check it out.
Yep. As of right now, we'll both be there unless I can't find a flight from my snowy little corner of the globe.
That's fair.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. As always, please leave us feedback wherever you feel like. YouTube's great if you want to go direct to us a lot faster and get a response back a lot sooner. Twitter is definitely going to be the place to go. Facebook, you can also DM us on there. We'll see it pretty quickly.
Also, before we go, I did want to say, again, in 2 weeks, we'll be doing a Theros Beyond Death, Return to Theros, whatever. Our March 9th episode,
Yes.
We'll be doing a Return to Theros booster box giveaway. So please, that is available for patrons
only.
for as little as $1. You can become a patron of us and be eligible for these bi-monthly giveaways.
You can yell at us directly in Discord, and that's even faster.
Yes,
Not going to lie. I was active all day yesterday chirping with people in Discord about this Golgari deck. So
Yep.
you can hit us there. But again, thanks for listening. At Halt I Am Reptar on Twitter. You are
At Thirsty Sizzler.
We are at MtG Cabal on Twitter, on Facebook, iTunes or Apple Music, whatever it is now. And we'll see you next week.
Yep.